Today, we're diving into a really powerful piece of law. But here's the thing. It doesn't come from Washington, D.C. or some state capital. Nope. This one comes from a sovereign tribal nation. Let's get right into this fascinating crossroads of labor rights and tribal self-governance.
So let me start with a question for you. Imagine you just landed a great new job. You're excited, but then you find out there's a catch. To keep that job, you have to pay fees to an organization, maybe one you don't even agree with. How would that sit with you?
Well, this isn't just some hypothetical question. It's a real issue, right at the heart of labor law. And on the lands of the Hannahville Indian community, they decided to create a very specific legal code to give a definitive answer for anyone working there.
Okay, so what does this law actually do? Before we can get into the nitty-gritty, we first have to be crystal clear on who it applies to. The code is super specific about the key players involved.
First up, we've got the employer. And what's really important here is just how broad this definition is. We're not just talking about a specific factory or a casino. It could be any person, any corporation, or get this, even the tribal government itself when it's acting as an employer. Basically, if you're employing even one person on tribal land, this law is talking to you.
Next, the employee. Now, this definition is about as straightforward as it gets, right? It covers any single person who is employed by one of those employers we just talked about. The simplicity is the whole point. It's meant to cover absolutely everyone.
And that brings us to the third piece of the puzzle, the labor organization. This is just the formal legal term for what most of us would simply call a union. You know, any group that's organized to negotiate with employers about the big stuff, wages, working conditions, and all those workplace issues.
So you might be wondering, what gives a tribal nation the power to create a law like this in the first place? Well, the answer boils down to one incredibly important concept: sovereignty.
The code itself actually points right to the source of its power, the tribe's inherent sovereign authority. I want you to focus on that word inherent. This isn't a power that was given to them by some other government. It's a fundamental right the tribe has to control what happens on its own land and to protect its own economic future.
And this right here, this is the legal linchpin. It's the key to the whole thing. The tribe makes an official finding that the big federal labor law, the National Labor Relations Act, or NLRA, doesn't apply to them as a sovereign government. By carving out that legal space, they create the room they need to write their own rules, their own playbook, for employment on their lands.
All right, so now that we know the who and the why, let's get to the heart of it. What rights does this code actually give an employee? What does it really say?
The core of the law is incredibly direct. It basically says, as a condition of keeping your job, you can't be forced to join a union, you can't be forced to stay in one if you decide you want out, and you absolutely cannot be forced to pay any dues, fees, or anything else to one. It's all about your personal choice.
And let me tell you, this law has some serious teeth. Any contract or agreement that tries to get around these rights isn't just frowned upon, it's declared an illegal combination or conspiracy. That's some really strong language, and it means that kind of agreement is totally worthless, null and void from the second it's made.
And what I love about this is how it shows the responsibility is shared. It's a two-way street. Employers are flat out forbidden from discriminating or retaliating against you based on your choice. But at the same time, the labor organizations can't use coercion, threats, or intimidation to pressure you. Both sides have to respect the employee's decision.
So a law is only as strong as its enforcement, right? What happens if somebody thinks their rights under this code have been violated? Well, the tribe has set up a very clear legal path to make this code a reality.
So the whole process kicks off in the tribal court. An employee has 180 days, about 6 months, to file a complaint. The court can even step in right away to stop any ongoing harm. And here's a really smart detail. The case is handled by a special master. That's an attorney who is an expert in both labor and federal Indian law. This makes sure the person making the decisions really truly understands the complex issues at play.
Now, to get the next part, we need to quickly talk about a big legal idea called sovereign immunity. In the simplest terms, it means you usually can't sue a government, whether that's the US government or a tribal government, unless they say you can.
And this right here is a huge deal. The Hannahville Indian community has willingly passed a limited waiver of its own immunity. They are explicitly giving people permission to bring a case against the tribe itself if the tribe, acting as an employer, violates this code. Think about that. That shows an incredible commitment to being held accountable to their own laws. It really puts their money where their mouth is. So let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. Why go to all this trouble?
Why did the tribe create this code? What's the endgame here?
The code's own purpose statement really tells us everything we need to know. It's all about two big, connected goals. First, to maximize an individual's freedom of choice at work. And second, to create an atmosphere that actually encourages economic growth. The tribe sees those two ideas as being completely linked together.
So at the end of the day, this whole thing is about so much more than just union dues. It is a powerful declaration of self-governance. This is the Hannahville Indian community using its sovereign power to build the exact economic environment it wants on its own terms for the benefit of its people and everyone who works on their land.
And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. As more and more tribal nations use their sovereignty to create their own unique economic rules, how is that going to shape investment, jobs, and the whole relationship between tribal and non-tribal economies down the road? It's a really fascinating question about the growing power of self-governance.